Zack. Aufnahme läuft. Welcome everybody. Nice to see you again after 2 weeks break, or 1 week break at least. Today I want to talk about testing. How can I switch on between the screens? Lovely. I guess we already told, but I want to repeat again. There are these Rails guides. They are pretty good documentation for Rails, not in a API documentation kind, but really how to use things. And you will find, well, almost everything we talked about so far in the early sections. And today we'll go slightly deeper and have a look at testing Rails applications. So this is what we want to do today and what you will be supposed to do for the next homework. I really suggest having a look at the Rails guides because they are really pretty thorough and easy to understand. Well, I really like them very much. So testing. We will, especially since Ruby is a non-typed language, tests are pretty important, at least if you're not 100% sure what you're doing. So testing is baked into the Rails framework quite deeply. So we have, again, our stupid calculate application. And there is this test folder that should be available in all of your applications too. And inside this test folder, you find for the different types of tests that are available and that we are going to implement, you already find the folders. So first, I think we should start with unit tests. And there we have this models folder here. And when it comes to testing, we're actually running the application against a special database, which is defined in config environments test. This is the environment the tests are running in. So when the application is running in test environment, these are the settings. They are slightly different from development because especially this zero turnaround stuff, that changing the code and immediately reloading isn't required in testing, and some other features are different too. You don't have to tweak these normally, at least, but yeah, you find the settings for the test environment. And if you are interested, you could compare them to the development environment to see what's different here. But yeah, and in this test environment, a different database is used. So in the database YML, you see for test we have this entry here. Größer. For test, we have this entry here, which again inherits from default, so SQLite. And we are saving our stuff in the test SQLite 3 database. If we were using MySQL or Postgres or whatever, you could define a different database here too. It's like calculate test or whatever. Okay, so what's important to know is when we are running tests, we're not destroying any data we are dealing with in development environment. It's a different database and it's being cleaned up before and after each test run. All right. So as I said, we want to start testing our models. Let's have a brief look what it is. So we have these models here. So for category and user, there's not so much to test, but we should probably start with category because it's so very simple. So the only thing we can really test with a category is whether or not it validates the title. It's really just to get started. Okay, so we go to the directory, and we then say. So I have a second monitor because I don't memorize everything. So there is a generator for the tests. that I don't normally use because so I don't remember the yeah. Pardon? Oh yeah. Again. So can you read that? Is that okay? All right. So well, the simplest way is just creating a file. We call it. We want to test categories, so it's the category test RB, and in this test we just define a class category test, which inherits from active support test case, and we require. This is just done by default. The test helper, which you find here. By default, there's not much going on in there, but you could add. You could add further settings to the active support test case, or you could add further functions that you want to use in all the test cases. So this requiring this test helper just loads stuff up. All right, and there are two different ways to define the tests. I prefer the test something. Do no variable, assert true, and define something else, assert false. This is just to see what's happening. So we have two tests, one called something, one called something else, and the first should pass, the second should not. So you're all familiar with assertions? So you're all familiar with testing in principle, or? All right, so there's only two guys I can see, so you're talking for everybody. Okay, so now we are in this directory, and we'll just say Rails test. Bam! Something went wrong. Cannot load such file. Oops. Looks like I broke my directory here. Bundle update. Yeah, we just try updating all dependencies. Let's see whether it works then. Bam. All right, this is bad. Okay, launch XML active support. I guess this has something to do with me updating the all the brew dependencies, and this every now and then leads to dynamic libraries missing. So let's have a look whether it did something. No, it did not. So this is sad. It's pretty annoying. Config environment and Rails test help. All right, so we just have to look it up. Yeah, let's just try it like this. Looks like some library had an implicit dependent, or some library had a dependency on Rexaml. To bundle again. Better. All right. So now, as expected, we have two tests. The one with the green dot was successful, and the red F means it failed. So, and we have one failure. Category tests something else. Expected false to be truthy. All right, so something went wrong there. And there's another thing that can go wrong in tests, of course. That is, we get an error. Test an error. And we just raise. Oops. So now we should have 3 tests. Okay. Oh yeah. By the way, the order of the tests is determined by random. So every time the test system starts up, it guesses a random number and determines the order of the tests by that. So you could you don't accidentally rely on the order of the tests to be important because they have to be atomic. But if you want to have exactly the same situation again, you have to run the you can run the tests with an explicit seed, and this is then the base for all the random stuff from then on. So it will be all the same if you're specifying the seed explicitly. All right, so as we thought, we had one failure again. This is something else where we asserted false. One successful and one test with an error. All right, so this is the main syntax thing here. So, but of course this is not reasonable. So let's just try something. Create category. C equals to category dot new. And now we do know from the categories that we, where is it? That we validate the title for presence and uniqueness. So assert not c.save. Or we could also say c.valid, and it should not be valid. And then we can say c.title equals to empty string. For now it had been nil, and we still expect it not to be valid, or even some spaces, because this is this presence thing, and a string containing a white space is not considered present. Now we set the title, and so we should assert c.valid. No. So now we have 3 assertions, 2 of them being of the type assert not, 1 of them being of the type assert. So let's run the tests again. All right, pretty fast. We had 1 run. We had 3 assertions, and of these, none failed, none errors, none skips. So yeah, the assertions worked. And now we can even say c.save and see whether it saved. And well, it's not actually creating category, it's more test or title presence. This is what we actually tested there. So if something goes wrong now, yeah. Let's see, should work. Okay, and if we go to the category and accidentally remove the validation stuff, then we should run into an error, as expected. And we see, we can see in what happened in the category test, line 7. This one went wrong because the category was valid because the validation was removed. All right, so back on. And next thing is we want to test the category title uniqueness. So we directly create it. Or we can say it like this, title. Title cat. And third C dot persisted. There's nothing that could go wrong there, in principle at least. And now we try to create another category with the same name. And then we should have assert C dot new record. This is just the opposite of being persisted. So it couldn't be because this was persisted because creating is like new and safe in one. And this one could not be persisted, so it should be a new record. New record just means it has not been saved to the database. Never been saved to the database. Changing doesn't create a new record. It's really just a record that has never had an ID. All right. And also, let's call this C2. And on the other hand, if we're now creating a dog called C3, it should C3 persisted. All right, so let's see what happens. Yeah, 2 runs, 7 assertions, everything went well. We could, of course, check a lot of other stuff, like assert C3.id. C3 should have an ID because it was saved. C2 should not have an ID because it could not be saved. And yeah, looks like it worked. So this is what we can do with unit tests. And of course, we could test whether the calculations relation works. So we just create our category and C dot calculations create. Oh, first count assert equal 0 dot. So there should not be any calculations now. Let's try that. Kaboom. Calculations. That's computation, isn't it? No, it's calculations. So as you just saw, when doing this DB drop, create, and so on, the development and the test database are being touched. The production database, if one is there, will never be touched automatically. So you have to explicitly say, I want to destroy something in the production development. It's just for safety. So calculations. So let's have a look again. What went wrong there? Could not find table calculations. This is awkward. So let's see what went wrong there. Obviously, we destroyed something. Create calculations. Create calculations. Has many calculations depending. Nullify. So we could probably, yeah, let's just, well, this is not too bad. Let's just try new file, calculation, test RB. And for simplicity, we just copy the stuff. We have to call it calculation. By the way, of course, these test classes are not being loaded unless you're running the tests. They're not part of the application context, of the bigger application context. They are really a distinct part in the folder, and they are just loaded when they are required to run the tests. So you don't poison your environment by writing these tests. All right, test anything and no, do and. Calculation count, just for simplicity. Let's just see whether the calculation test goes wrong. And we can then say test models calculation. So we just explicitly want to run only this calculation test, not all the other stuff. No, it's not that much so far, but still, we want to try that. Could not find table calculation. This is completely awkward. Calculations. Oh, this doesn't seem like a typo. We just drop the and recreate the databases just to see what's going on. Why couldn't it find the calculation thing? This is really awkward. Well, so this is strange because it's still has some. Oh no, we have these random calculations. We added them. Test SQLite. This is fine. Last time out SQLite. What's wrong there? Yeah, let's do 3. I want to list all the tables, dot tables. Categories, and there is no calculations table here. This is right. So it's not what we expected to, but it's at least it's correct. All right. Yeah, this is interesting. Something went wrong. We defined in our create calculations here. No, not categories thing. Yeah, we have this thing. To the calculations, we added a category ID, which is of type reference. And obviously, the schema dumper wasn't able to dump this table. This is the problem with the with this DSL stuff. So if we just change, so what this schema RB is, when the migration is running afterwards, the complete result of this will be dumped to a file, and this is what we see there. And for every test, this file is being loaded. So for every test, first this schema is being reloaded. So we are starting with a clean database every run. And if something goes wrong with the dumping, then of course we're in trouble. So if you just change this to integer, and do all this dropping again. Let's have a look. All right. Then we see in this schema RB, we have a active record schema, define blah, 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 create table calculations. So everything works now. There is the possibility to change this dumping thing from the definition DSL to proper SQL. So we could also say we don't want the schema RB, but a structure SQL that can be used in exactly the same way. But for this course, I thought we should just stick to the as abstract as possible version, so we don't use database specific stuff. So that's why we're using this. Whatever. Yeah. So this is, I really consider this a bug. But anyway. So now it should be possible to run this one. Boop, boop. And the other one too, hopefully. Okay. So we had 4 runs, 10 assertions. Okay. So we can go back to the tests. This calculations test was just used to check whether or not the table exists. Right, so we can just keep it. Well, if in the future something goes wrong, this will fail too. Okay, so but now back to the category. This one was successful. Otherwise, we'd not have a green dot. And so we can now take the category and calculations, create. I forgot again what the calculations actually are. I don't know. Argument 1, argument. Right. All right, so back to here. One, two, plus. And now we should have one calculation for this category. And we could probably just reload it to be totally sure that there's nothing cached. Okay, so again, test. Kaboom, 11 assertions, and everything worked. Okay. And this calculation thing actually does something. So we could check calculations. Okay. And here we could just insert equal 3 and calc dot, I think it was result, wasn't it? Yes, result. Okay, and of course we can do the same with the minus calculation and stuff. We're even using negative numbers. This is so fancy. All right. So it is of course reasonable to have tests for all the plus minus times and divided by. So we are trying to have every branch of the code actually tested. Not for here and now, but in principle, you should do that. Okay. So this is the unit tests, and unit tests are, well, especially for when you're dealing just with data containers, they are pretty boring. And the main issue with unit tests is to make sure that, for example, things like these validations don't get lost, because this might break things. So checking the important validations isn't a bad idea. Of course, you don't have to check whether the validations work. So this is framework stuff. You may, of course, rely on the function of the validations itself, but to just make sure that the validation is still in place. This is what you should use unit tests, even for stupid container objects. Just take them in the hand, see whether the tables can be loaded and everything can be wired properly, and so on. So just to make sure there's nothing going wrong there. All right. Okay. So this is the this is the unit test stuff. There is a way to check the mailers, but we had a mailer already, but I won't go into that. Then there is this thing. What we did here, we were creating the objects by hand. But if you have a lot of stuff that you might want to use, it is reasonable to, or it can be reasonable to not explicitly create everything in the tests, but to define a couple of objects beforehand. And for this, there is this fixtures directory, which is currently empty. This is you define these models using YML. This is strange. Just a second. All right. And we should just probably define something quickly here. New file. And we have a category. Is it plural? Yeah, categories, YML. And you give symbolic names to these to the entries. So we have cat1. And this is just because there's not a lot to do, so we just have a title. And just to be sure it doesn't do some magic with the numbers, we can have another. So, all right. And then if we go to the calculations test, we can do test using fixtures. This is, of course, this is not a reasonable test. We just want to check how to use these fixtures. Okay, we can then say C equals to category cat1. And C2 is category cat2. And we then can say things like assert equal C1.title. So this did not work, obviously. Category. Okay, so it was plural. So this is a way to predefine certain object that you might need in your tests. So we could also have the calculations .yml and addition. It even might be necessary to add quotes. Okay, so now we could do things like go to the calculations test and oh, this was the wrong directory, the wrong file anyway. This belongs here. And now we can say calculations addition. And since we know how we define this, we can directly say assert what was the numbers? I forgot it. 1 and 2, so 3. Assert 3 C dot result. All right. This is, well, neatish, but the actual power comes when we are mixing things. So we have these calculations, addition and subtraction. And for this, we can say calculations. So let's just have a brief look whether it was. The syntax may be slightly wrong. Yeah, well, we can just have a look. Okay, so obviously this was not right. Yeah, but we can define relations here. Model testing. Okay, so as you might see, I don't normally use fixtures. There are other frameworks like FactoryBot, I guess, called that are more powerful. But calculation category. Yeah, let's just try it once again. But I'm afraid this is just not the way it's done, and I don't want to dig deeper there. But in principle, I am sure you can use this to actually link these objects with another. But yeah, this is not something we want to go into here, because I don't really promote these fixtures, because, well, they are built in there. that simple, but they're not very flexible. You could use ERB here. You could use, but I very much prefer writing Ruby code and just creating them, because this YML is not that so much easier than just writing category.new of title. So it's very much the same. And so I prefer just writing code. And this could be placed in the test helper and additional files to just produce your mockup stuff. So therefore I'm not a great fan of these fixture stuff. But for example, for creating users, it's probably not a bad idea to just set up the default user stuff and being able to log in. All right. So the next thing I want to have a look at is writing controller tests. Well, we could, there's a generator for these. With model. There are, yes. Okay, so we first have this, so let's just have a look at the routes again, briefly. We have this hello route, which goes to the welcome controller hello action. But I think there was nothing going on there. Yeah, really just a very stupid page. Let's just have a look at the calculations controller. This is probably the best place to start. And anyway, it's the first page we see. Okay, so we have the calculations controller test RB. Okay, and again, calculations controller test. This is inherits from a special superclass action dispatch integration text. Okay. Yeah, let's just see whether we have any errors. No, that's fine. Okay, so we can add our tests here. Test first controller test. Whoops. And what we're doing in the controller test is really just call the actual actions. So we say we want to get, well, in principle, we want to get calculations, but we could also use the test helpers here. So we can also say the calculations, the path helpers, sorry, calculations path. Okay, so let's just see. So you see there's something going on there. It now has to spin up the system. So in the background, there was a faceless, or there was the application started, and then there was an actual request made to this application. So of course we want to do something with it, and we could just say assert response success. Let's see. So obviously worked. So we should try it with something that does not work. I'm not here. So now we should run into an error, or a failure, not an error, hopefully. All right. So now we have two things. There was an error raised inside the web request, And this error bubbles up to the actual test. So we're in this strange situation that we have kind of mixed context here. So it's not like the application is running somewhere, is being completely uncoupled, but the application is running within the same context. So yeah, that is why we get this this error here. If we just say get calculation path. So now we try to have a look at the calculation number, random number that will hardly be there. We should run into failure. Yeah, all right. So this is, we get a record not found. There is a special assert raise thing here. This is it raise or I think it is raise. Yeah, we can just have a look. Okay, so we expected this to raise an error, and since this assert raise, yeah, expects the contents to raise an error. If we do assert raise with something that does not raise an error, yeah, standard error expected, but nothing was raised. Yeah, so you can also check when you have there may be points in your application where you decide that just raising an error is well enough to handle certain situations. Then you can just you can test this using this assert raise. And there's also a certain not raise, I think, or raise not. I don't know. Okay, so yeah, we couldn't find this calculation here. So yeah, this is fine. And yeah, just so this first this test was just visit blank calculations page. And now we want to have a look. Let's test new calculation. New calculation path. Let's have a look. I think we prohibited calling it without being logged in, so we should run into an error now. No, obviously not. Assert response success again. I guess we got a redirect. But was, yeah. So we expected the result to be 200, but we got some redirect. Which is right, because we say we don't want to be able to create calculations without being logged in. This is just correct behavior. So I'm not sure whether that's right, but let's just see. Okay, so we try to go to the new calculation path, and we expect to get a redirect. Probably this is a situation where it's reasonable to just give a little hint on why this is right. We are not logged in. You are not logged in. So yeah. Okay. And let's just for now go to the calculations controller. We just remove these authentication requirement for the moment. We should now get an oops. Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, so we got a 200 now. And there are now possibilities to have a look at the actual result. So where's the control test again? So somewhere it came. So yeah, the we should have a look at just go into the debugger here, which is of course possible. So we can have a look at what we're really getting. So there is this response object. Oops. Which is an action dispatch test response. And now we can have an intimate look at what's going on inside the result. So there is all the headers are available. And we can just see whether all headers are set as we want them to be. And there's of course the body available, which is some ugly HTML stuff. And we could check things like, is there a form inside the response body? And even if we could, for example, say, all right, we know this form definition has to be inside the results, so we can say assert response well, yeah, this is very ugly, but we could just check whether the form we expect to be there is being generated. Oh, sorry. So we can just restart the test. Calculators controller 14 assert. Let's see what's going on. No, it's response.body. I just forgot to look at the right thing. Expected needed to be truthy. Still wrong. All right. So this is a matter of escaping only. We have to get rid of these backslashes because we're using single quotes outside. So now it should work. All right. So now we can be sure that when we are calling the new calculation path, there will be this form inside this inside the calculation. We just removed the login stuff. We will see how this can be managed later or be dealt with later. Okay, so now we are on the new calculations page. And what we now want to do is we want to post to the calculations path and then there is this. How do I have to? Yeah. And we have to explicitly say we want to give the parameters for calculation. There somewhere. Argument 1 is 1, 2, 2 plus. All right, and close these two. And we expect the response to be of type redirect, because when submitting successfully submitting a form, we will get a redirect to the index page. And probably, yeah, just run this. Was 200, so there's something wrong. I'm going to print. No. Yeah, let's just have a look what's going wrong there. What's bad. Debugger. Okay, so yeah. So response. All right, so we went into this could not create situation, but there is no further explanation on why. Oh no, category must exist. Oh, fine. Oh, lovely. So we assert response success, which is slightly awkward because it wasn't a success in the sense that the creation worked, but it's a success and we're getting a 200 and being displayed in further information. So we can say, all right, we category must exist. We expect this to be part of the answer. And now we are reposting the category ID category.id, and we just manually create a category. Also, we could. This is for example, this is a good situation where these fixtures are quite neat. Get one. So we just get this fixture category, and we add this as a parameter, and afterwards we should then hopefully get our redirect. Oops, no. Run the test again. Lovely. So that worked. And we could then get the new calculation, go back to the calculation overview, calculations path. And for example, add some sufficiently awkward numbers here. And then make sure that we're getting a success. And there is this number being contained somewhere on the page. because we have this table listing all the categories or all the computations. Yeah. All right. But what we do here is we don't use a faceless browser. We are really just sending explicit GET and POST requests and see what comes back. And there is no such thing as a flow. So there is a semantic flow. So we are thinking in terms of there are things going on, but there is not there's no state or anything. It's really just the just these stupid GET and POST requests being fired, and you're getting the results back. One thing that's important to realize, you see, we are creating a category here in the controller, and this is working against with the same database as the running server. So we are again we are in the same context. So we can create something in the test code, and it will be available through the web code. So we can check. Or we could also check things like assert, calculation, find by argument 1 being this stupid number. Yeah, so we can access the database from both sides, and it is the same database, and we can deal with the same data. All right. So this is a way controllers can be tested, but I think in general implementing a workflow is something that is done better with a browser that has a stored state. So the browser is the point where the state is stored by using cookies. And we could, of course, save the cookies here, extract them from the headers, and send them with the next request, and all this kind of stuff. This is all possible. But I think, using a faceless browser is a better option. So I suggest doing that. And to do this, there are the system tests. System tests are using Capybara, which is a Ruby library, and under the hood, it's using the Selenium WebDriver, which is based on Phantom, I guess. So yeah, this is really using a faceless, or in Chrome even. This is really just using a faceless Chrome to really look at the page, and then you can do things like actually click on links. This is not possible in the controller test. The controller tests, there is no such thing as a link. There is really just stupid requests like curl. And with these faceless browsers, you can click on links, and you can even interact with JavaScript stuff. So you can test things like I click on show details, and something shows up then. So yeah. This can of course be done with things like Test Cafe. You might be familiar with that, which is a great framework to do end-to-end tests for web applications. But the disadvantage is that when you're using some external libraries like Test Cafe, you don't have this tight interaction. So you don't have access to the database from the tests, from the running tests. So you can't click on something and check whether things change in the database the way you desire. This is possible with these integration tests here, or these system tests here. All right. Therefore, let's just try to set up a system test. Again, I have to briefly look up the syntax. I always I'm always typing all this. There are generators for a lot of stuff, but I think it's just more instructive to see things that are being made. But only the disadvantage is that that I have to be sure that I get the syntax right. All right. So we want to save this as, just calculations test again. And this is calculations test. Inherits from, application system test case. And to have access to this, we have to, so the application system test case is just defined here, being a subclass of action dispatch system test case, would have guessed. And we have to require this application system test case. Okay. So let's just run this stuff to see whether it's there in principle, and add a test truth. Sometimes I hate editors being clever. So the system tests have to be run explicitly. Okay. So we have this assertion which worked, not surprisingly. Okay. So now we can the syntax is pretty related to what you know from Test Cafe and stuff like that. So in this case, we really say visit. Let's say, we have to routes rb get hello. So this is then the hello path, I guess. Visit hello path. All right. So we didn't really see a lot, but as you probably realized, there was briefly a browser appeared. So the browser isn't faceless, and we can let's just. I don't remember very well how the application actually looked, so probably. All right, so now we can click on login. Okay, so in principle it worked, but I suggest we are just opening a console and have a look at the logging. close it, and again. Okay, so now let's have a look at the log. Calculations test workflow stuff. Started get to hello, and this is then the output of the actual Rails application running. So there's really a proper application running, and this is being accessed by a proper browser. So let's see what happens when we click on. We have to restart the browser of the application to use it interactively. Okay. So inspect. Let's try whether we can just say fill out email. Hope so. So we clicked on login, and then we say fill in. Again, email with. To be honest, test@example.com. Fill in password with blah blah, and click on create user. Create user? Oh well, this is nonsense. Of course, this shouldn't be create user. Yeah, we have to change that. Fun? Yeah, from the Rails point of view, it's just reasonable to think this is a user's form, but in fact it is a session creation form. But the thing we're dealing with is, well, a user. So this is we abuse the user here. But yeah, click on log me in. Yeah, let's just see what happens. And we should just do sleep one. Just to prevent the browser from just flickering. It's just too fast for us to see it. Okay, so again, run the test. Bam. Okay, so everything worked as expected, but of course we couldn't be logged in because the data just wasn't complete. User not found or password incorrect. This is exactly what we expect to happen. So this is something we can just check whether, or we can make sure it worked. So we can, assert text, assert text, user not found or password incorrect. So this was a non-successful login run. So successless login. Yeah. Okay, so we do a second test. Again, visiting the hello path, filling all the stuff. But first, we just manually create a user. Of course, we have to provide another test that goes to the sign up page and does all the stuff required there. The only thing that's, or that I don't know whether it can easily be done, is clicking on the email validation link in the email. This is something I don't know how this could be tested automatically, but this is something that you can just do by using this, just explicitly going to the validation link. You have access to all the required data, so it's not a problem to do that. So user create, email, we just use the same again. Using, oops, password, blah, blah. And I think so we didn't do any email validation yet. Yeah, okay. So this is sufficient then. And we could of course just use user.email here, not with the password obviously, because the password is not stored in plain text, so you can't access it using user.password, hopefully. This is something that could be tested too, of course, just to make sure, everything is being stored in a sufficiently secure way. And then there should not be this user not found or password incorrect, but we can just have a look what we call sessions controller. Now we should have logged in. Welcome. So let's have a look. Okay, this did not work because we forgot to give a name. Again, this is one of the places where using these fixtures is quite neat. Just saying, give me the user, whatever, may be quite helpful or shorten things up. So again, another error. Unable to find test successful login. And it couldn't find a field email that is not disabled. Yeah. For example, you could just, by the way, you can so there is a screenshot being made automatically whenever an error occurs. So this is a screenshot of the actual browser situation in the moment of the error. And you can also explicitly, I don't know it by heart, say take screenshot, and then there will be really just an image being taken of the situation or the browser in the moment that you say that. And there are also libraries to compare things, so you can take a screenshot and compare the result with the expected screenshot. There are also libraries that then allow some slightly fuzzy comparison with of images that are not not so things don't have to be exact by 1 pixel, but they can be slightly blurred and still accept them as being the same. So, but still, I do not see why this email thing did not work. So we just get rid of this this logging down here. Just wanted to show. So successful, the success less login worked, but the successful did not. This is awkward. All right, so sleet is not a function. So where's that? Ah, all right. So here we see we ran into an error. Okay. We ran into an error with a mailer in the background that tried to send the verification email. All right. So we edit this token afterwards. And we don't have to run all the tests at once. We can just say, yeah, this. All right, it's a verification token. Thanks for nothing. And by giving the line number of the error, Rails finds which test to run. It will run only the test to which this line number belongs. So we don't run all, but only this one. Okay, so now we got user not verified, which is correct because it wasn't verified. So we can just, we have this verified Boolean. We will just set this to true. Typo type. And we can then also say we want to assert that we get the text all calculations. And if this is done without all the sleeping, even these headless tests are running pretty fast, although they are really booting up the complete application in the background and they are running in a complete browser and all this stuff. But things are quite fast. So Rails test, just running the unit test and the integration tests. And test system runs the headless browser stuff. Kaboom. and the data is always being erased, so you don't get a no, we have a database cleaner running. This is responsible for cleaning up behind us. So there are no, except for very special cases, there are no traces. So every test is starting nice and clean, and you don't have these the remains of the previous tests around. So especially when it comes to testing things like uniqueness or creating things that have unique columns or unique constraints, you won't run into trouble there. There are different kinds of database cleaners. Some of them are using transactions, so they just start a transaction, do all the testing, and end the transaction, and roll it back instead of committing. But this does not work for the integration tests for the headless stuff, because you have two different database connections, and so the database connection that the browser uses is different from the database connection the test uses. So when you're doing this in a transaction, the two connections don't see the stuff the other one does. So this is something you every now and then have to think about. Well, how to properly clean up all the mess behind you. In the system test case, this is something that you may need to do manually, or every now and then. This is then you're going into things that are slightly more complicated. And I totally promote using these system tests for advanced testing, because they are just so powerful, and especially this is what an actual user does. This is not some academic what could be done thing, but it's really just what actual users do and what actual people see. So I even think that just probably writing in a system test that is mainly just logging in and clicking a couple of simple links will find most bad errors, because it tests all the stack. It tests from the high-level controller view stuff down to the models, and even the deeper layers of the framework itself. Everything is involved in these tests. So my preference is having unit tests for the really logical parts and the really computational and things where really crazy business logic is involved, and using these system tests for testing all the rest. This is normally quite sufficient. So I wouldn't. These controller tests are something I rarely or almost never use, to be honest. But of course, it's nice to just have the possibility to just call these functions. By the way, you could also, when you're using the console, am I right? So I'm sure there was a way to use these get things at the on the console too. No, not web console. No, this is not. Also something that I rarely use, but there is a way to get the to use well, just plain Ruby methods to do virtual controller calls. But I'm not sure about the syntax. I know they are around, but again, I rarely use them. Okay, so sadly, I'm slightly faster than expected. Is that Is it acceptable to just yes? Okay. So do you want to? Christopher is sitting down there, by the way. He was with us all the time. Do you want to say something about the homework?
I think it's self-explaining.
So as you may have guessed, the homework is somewhat related to testing.
Yeah, just implement that for the assignment text. I think the main task will be implementing the system test for all your views.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah.
that's it.
So I guess the unit tests are pretty boring so far because we don't have any logic. So I guess I may be wrong, but I think they are just container objects that are there's no fancy shit.
So there's nothing to say about.
Okay.
Are there questions around?
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
This sounds very much like a typo, I guess. Let's have a look. No, this is wrong. So action dispatch.
Yes.
This. Oh, yeah. One thing I missed. I think we have to require the test helper anyway. Have you tried that? All right. Okay. Yeah, apologies. This required stuff works always. So every file is being required just once. So if you have 7 tests and they're executed in an order that the one with a missing require is at the end somewhere, it will probably never fail. Although it may at some point, because it's, as I said, everything that's related to order is being randomized, so intentionally, just to find things like that. So, anything else? All right, so then we are done for today. Thank you so much for your attention, and see you next week. And I disable this, or did you? No, here.
Green.